Every day we're on the internet, no matter what app you're on, whether Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, etc., there are always someone getting relentlessly dragged for something. You can't say anything negative about a social group without getting called racist, misogynistic, homophobic, transphobic, anti-Semitic, etc. Once these labels are applied to you, even if you aren't that label, there's no going back, and people always think of you as such. Cancel culture has become such an ingrained part in our society, but I believe it does more harm than good. So I'm here to discuss everything I think is wrong with cancel culture. Definition and origin of cancel culture. In order to have a discussion about cancel culture, it's important to define what cancel culture is because people forget the definition of words these days. Cancel culture is defined as the practice or tendency of engaging in mass canceling or boycotting as a way of expressing disapproval and exerting social pressure. The origins of cancel culture into pop culture is due to Black Twitter. During the 2010s, Black Twitter was one way Black people called out corporations, celebrities, political figures, etc., that culturally appropriated Black culture or did problematic things. Cancel culture became truly integrated into society with the rise of the Me Too movement in 2017, where mainly female victims of sexual abuse would state the abuse that they suffered. So, why do I have a problem with cancel culture? Although cancel culture gives social minorities a chance to call out harmful and problematic actions of others, cancel culture has become a form of modern-day witch hunting. People are more interested in participating in mob mentality rather than calling for change and permanently withdrawing support from problematic corporations and public figures. Public shaming has always been a thing. Although the term cancel culture is credited more recently, the practice of public shaming has always existed throughout history. It's pretty much an ingrained part in human behavior. The Salem witch trials is the most well-known example of this, where, in short, in Salem, Massachusetts, mostly women were accused of being witches and were killed as a result. I'm bringing this up to say, now we shun the people of the past for participating in the mob mentality that resulted in killing people on baseless assumptions with no evidence, when what we are doing now is not that far from what was being done in the past. All we've done is adapted that to fit the internet. Cancel culture doesn't equal activism. Going on the internet and creating a post stating what a celebrity did wrong or hating on a celebrity is not a form of activism as much as people feel like it is. Cancel culture is a cycle of temporarily hating on public figures because it's popular to do so, but this temporariness doesn't bring about any long-term social change, and it is just a continuous cycle of internet outrage that gets no one nowhere. Cancel culture doesn't allow people to make mistakes and learn from them. A person's wrongdoing shouldn't define who a person is or cost someone their career. When people are getting canceled for their past mistakes that have been committed at a young age while they are adults or even older is weird. It establishes an idea that a person cannot change at all and a person is only their wrongdoings. If we were all judged by our mistakes, then by logic of the chronically online, we are all bad people who act the same way when we were teens, which is of course false. Cancel culture doesn't promote freedom of opinion. There have been multiple times where I've commented my opinion on things in K-pop in either YouTube videos or Instagram comments, and 80% of the time I ended up being attacked. Even though my opinion was reasonable and far from hateful, people would see my opinion as less than because of who I had as my profile pic or who my bias was. I've brought this up maybe once or twice before, but Vixo, a YouTuber that does commentary on K-pop music, has always gotten dragged for criticizing music that others blindly praise. Cancel culture has made it so that if you don't agree with what the majority of others think, your opinion is wrong and hateful and therefore you deserve to get shitted on. This results in people sugarcoating their opinion to not offend or get dragged by others. Additionally, a lot of people don't know the difference between hate, opinions, and criticism. And people think that just because you have a negative opinion or just because you have a negative criticism doesn't mean you're hating on them. Cancel culture increases gullibility. I remember when I was in ninth grade. Keep in mind this was 2021, so we were in the COVID Google Meet era of public schooling. It was AP Social Studies, and my teacher told me something that I think will always stick with me. He says something along the lines of, never believe anything headlines tell you and to do your own research. I feel like white male social studies teachers always give really good advice. I'm bringing this up to talk about the gullibility of internet users. Gullibility is defined as a tendency to be easily persuaded that something is real or true. If you spend any amount of time on the internet, you know how gullible a lot of people are. People will hear something from the most incredible source and spread that news as if it's the truth. Internet users that participate in dragging sessions most likely have a mix of these three things: laziness, gullibility, and boredom. Laziness. People are too lazy to do any research in the first place and would prefer to get their information from a 15 to 60-second poorly put together YouTube video. Gullible. People wholeheartedly believe that these poorly put together TikToks and YouTube shorts tell the whole story. Boredom. People are entertained by watching drama and scandals play out. And examples of this include When Garam's bullying scandal came out, people made things up like she hit someone over the head with a flower pot, led someone to commit suicide, wrote "I've down the seraphim" up on a chalkboard, all of which were fabricated and proven fake. But many people still believe she did those things. Another example is a video of Eugen from Kepler bumping shoulders with Baiyi. People then concluded that Eugen hates Baiyi. And the thing that really gets me is that when the truth comes out and these people are proven wrong, it's either absolute silence or they absolutely refuse to admit that they were wrong and either make excuses or move the goalposts. What's deemed offensive is always changing. In defense of public figures, what's deemed offensive is always changing and continues to do so every decade. In the 2010s, making fat jokes at lunch tables with friends would crack everyone up, but making those same jokes today would get you called fatphobic or a fat shamer. The word fat is considered offensive, and stating that being overweight is unhealthy, which is a fact, is considered offensive. Of course, there are more examples, but the meanings of words are always changing. One example that stands out to me the most is Marlon Brando, who was a popular actor in the 1900s. He had an interview in the 90s where he stated,
Hollywood is run by Jews, it is owned by Jews, and they should have a greater sensitivity about the issue of people who are suffering. Because they've exploited, we have seen the nigger and greaseball, we've seen the chink, we've seen the slit-eyed dangerous Jap, we have seen the wily Filipino. We've seen everything, but we never saw the kike. Because they knew perfectly well, that is where you draw the wagons around.
And if he said that today, I can bet he would have never been able to find another movie role. It's important to take time into account when consuming decades-old media. Additionally, how can someone that wants to be cautious of other social groups do so when, number one, a lot of the affected social groups don't give a valid explanation on why said action is offensive in the first place? And if you don't know why something is offensive or act why something is offensive, you're a part of the problem for not knowing. It's the hypocrisy for me. Another thing that happens as a result of the rise of cancel culture is the hypocrisy and flip-floppiness of online users. The definition of hypocrisy is the practice of claiming to have moral standards or beliefs to which one's own behavior does not conform. Levels of hypocrisy are no higher than in the K-pop fandom. I have quite a lot of examples. It's okay to hate on idols majority of the fandom doesn't like. If I criticized or hated a well-loved idol such as a member of BTS, I would probably get doxxed, sent death threats, or dragged by other stans. However, no one has that same energy for sending hate to idols that are seen as controversial or problematic. A big example that comes to mind for me is Super Junior. Every time a K-pop news page uploads news about Super Junior, they're always getting dragged in the comments. And I'm not gonna lie, some of those comments be cracking me up, and Super Junior aren't the most squeaky clean idol group out there. When I do research or watch some of their interviews, it feels like the amount of offensive shit they've said or done is almost endless. Heechul, Siwon, Lee Took, and Shindong are probably the most controversial, and I know I literally just named like almost half the group. Especially Heechul's ass. He's always getting himself into something. I believe Super Junior is a perfect example of getting away with shit because you're a male in a patriarchal society. So, in comparison to other hit idols, their dragging is fairly deserved. However, it's hypocritical that stans pick and choose who to relentlessly drag to their grave while praising others for simply existing. I've also never understood taking the time and energy out of your life to shit on these people you claim you don't like. You always have the option to direct that energy towards idols you do like. It really is that simple. K-pop stans only care for these idols when they're dead. I know that sentence might sound brutal, but it's the truth. The three idols that have committed suicide receive a lot of sympathy because they're dead and the circumstances in which they've died. But what about now? Why not do it while these idols are alive? Why do people only care about mental health when someone's dead? And where's the concern for the potential anxiety disorders or depression that comes from these mass dragging sessions? Bullying controversies. Now, bullying controversies is the number one example of K-pop stans hypocrisy. How are K-netizens and I-netizens saying they care about bullying victims while bullying alleged bullies? Especially K-nets. School violence cases are a big deal in Korea, as if K-nets aren't the biggest bullies in that country. Some people might believe we should stop bringing up idols like Garam, Sujin, and others since they've already left the industry. However, these cases should still be discussed because stans get a chance to move on to the next controversy like it's nothing. But for these idols that have sacrificed so much to debut in the first place, only have one chance to debut. If we don't continue to talk about these cases, more idols will fall victim to these scandals. Misogyny. Now, misogyny is a whole other discussion within itself, and I'm just using this as a subcategory on why I'm against cancel culture, so I'll say a few things. Female visuals are more likely to be dragged than male visuals, and female idols that get into bullying scandals are more likely to get kicked out of their groups than male ones. Stans hold idols to a higher standard than they have for themselves. Another reason controversies in K-pop are quickly blown out of proportion is that these fans hold these idols to a higher standard than stans have for themselves. It's both the fault of the companies and the fans. Companies train and promote these idols as the perfect person. Idols can sing, dance, act, and are out of this world gorgeous. So when these idols do something that goes against this image that the company has built for them, K-pop fans are taken aback. It's important for all K-pop fans to know that you will never know any of these idols personally, and an idol's persona is most likely heavily constructed by their company prior to their debut. Cancel culture ignites resentment. I wanted to include this section right after what I just said prior because it ties in well. Resentment is defined as a bitter indignation at having been treated unfairly. Resentment can include feelings of anger, sadness, bitterness, disappointment, shame, annoyance, disgust, or wanting to get revenge. I feel like a lot of K-pop stans have resentment for these idols. When K-pop stans place these idols on a pedestal and that idol does something wrong or does something a stan doesn't like, that stan begins to feel betrayed by them, and then they begin to feel a buildup of anger towards them. I first remember thinking about this when I commented on IG, and someone replied to me saying, "You have Garam as your profile pic. Speak when spoken to." I thought to myself, why do people have so much resentment towards this girl? So many people always say, Garam wasn't idol for 2 weeks. Why do people like her? But at the same time, she wasn't idol for 2 weeks and many resent her. And I believe when people see the successful person, young and attractive, they begin to have feelings of bitterness, thinking, how can a person achieve so much at a young age? This is why I think Wanyang receives a lot of hate as well. Also, for those that have built up resentment for these idols, finally see an opportunity to hate on them when a controversy happens because they can argue that their hate is justifiable. For me personally, I'm a person that has resentment towards others. There are people I can't stand. When I see their faces, I want to get away from them as quick as possible. Sometimes I feel no remorse when bad things happen to them, and I feel like they deserve it. But as I'm getting older, I'm realizing this is wrong, carrying feelings of hate. That's why I've adopted the process of not making other people's anger my own. Because I know if I'm around a bunch of angry people, I'll begin to be angry as well and fight a battle that isn't even mine. Then, when you ask yourself why you're angry, you can't even come up with an answer. So, are the bags being stopped? Is cancel culture actually stopping the bags of these creators? Obviously not. 90% of the time, they get dragged and everyone moves on to the next controversy. However, there are a few factors that contribute to whether celebrity can be controversies like race, gender, and how impactful they are in pop culture. Celebrities are less likely to be canceled if they're deemed talented. If a celebrity is considered extremely talented, legendary, or entertaining, people will be more likely to excuse their problematic behaviors and situations. The first example is R. Kelly. R. Kelly was known to be a pedophile long before the Surviving R. Kelly documentary was released. R. Kelly was able to slide for decades because R. Kelly was a talented singer and songwriter and had made many songs that are seen as classics in the black community, like Bump and Grind, It Seems Like You're Ready, Your Body's Calling, and more. Some black women also shame his victims with the argument of, what were they doing hanging with a grown man in the first place? K-pop idols get the chance to have multiple markets. Compared to black entertainers, if one of their markets fail, they always have the chance to go to a new one. Like when Giselle pissed off the black community, SM Entertainment only apologized because SM wants aespa to be big in the US, and aespa were scheduled to do interviews with Nick Cannon and Roy Wood Jr., which are both black men. But if SM wasn't trying to promote aespa in the West, there would have been crickets, like SM always does during any controversy, and aespa would have just strictly stuck to the Asian markets of Korea and Japan. Like, SM, who you thought you were fooling? Okay. White celebrities are allowed to rebrand their image. How many times have you seen a white beauty YouTuber get canceled just to return the next year and everybody moves on? James Charles, Jeffree Star, Shane, Tati, there's probably more I'm forgetting, have a continuous cycle. They get into a controversy, then they release a sit down video and filled with some tears. They take a year-long hiatus, they come back, and they make the same type of content. If cancel culture was really effective at ruining these people's careers, they all would have never had revivals to begin with. But it doesn't work, and even when they get into controversies, they don't have to worry because they know they can come back once the internet has finished their drag fest. Another example is celebrities like Bad Baby and Miley Cyrus being able to profit and make noise by portraying the stereotypical black girl, then they're able to be all polished once they're done. Outro. There are probably countless of more things that happen as a result of the modern day integration of cancel culture. However, these are the things that came to mind and I thought as most important to talk about. I usually stray away from doing in-depth podcasts on the politics of K-pop for reasons that they take too long, but also for me is that I don't want to rush to put together some bullshit. I want to make sure that, you can't rush greatness, and I want to make sure that I put together something good. I want to make sure I put together a good conversation. Compared to other times where I have decided not to continue through with podcasts due to, it being more on the political side of things, I really wanted to talk about cancel culture because it's been on my mind more and more. It irks my soul that so many celebrities and so many, minors have their careers destroyed, have their lives ruined over false shit. It just irks my soul that something this harmful has been normalized now.